Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Yoast SEO update. I am Carolyn Shelby,
And I'm Alex Moss.
and this is where we run through recent search news, updates, and the patterns that we're watching. And we'll talk honestly about what we think they mean.
And we'll definitely separate what we know from what we're still testing and speculating about.
And then there will be time. We will wrap up with Q&A at the end. One thing I would like you all to know is that we encourage questions. So do feel free to ask the questions. If you want, I think it's on the right side of the screen. There's a Q&A section. So if you write your question in the main chat, we might move your question over to the Q&A, or you can directly add it to the Q&A yourself. But either way, that Q&A section is where we will be choosing the questions from. So if you want your question answered at the end, that is the best place to put it. If you would like to learn more about today's topic, you can, as always, go to the Yoast website. So the short link is https://yoa.st, which spells Yoast, /update-February-2026. And yes, the recording will absolutely be available later. This is normally where we tell you that if you're interested, you can go to the Intro to SEO webinar. The Intro to SEO webinar has been divided into two distinct webinars. We now have SEO for Beginners, which will be on March 2nd, and we have Introduction to Yoast SEO. So SEO for Beginners is more of a broad introduction to SEO, not specifically tailored to our product, whereas Introduction to Yoast SEO is an introduction to Yoast SEO. So if you're new to the product itself, that is probably one that you definitely don't want to miss. The next Intro to Yoast SEO webinar is going to be March 17th, which is that St. Patrick's Day? I think it might be St. Patrick's Day. So maybe there will be green beer. No, I'm kidding. There won't be. Whose phone was that? Was that your phone?
Went through my do not disturb. I do not like
Okay. While we're going on, we've got helpful icons that you will periodically see at the top of the slides. The little stopwatch means that this is an immediate impact issue and will give you immediate impact advice. And the chess pieces mean it's a long-term strategy. It doesn't mean you can ignore it. It means it's strategy, and you should be paying attention because it's going to affect how you do things going forward. Finally, we have our poll question of the day. We would like to know if you see local AI agents as a major future workflow shift, a niche experimental tool, useful but overhyped, or just too early to tell. And if you don't know what an agent is, then maybe you want to go with D, or you could maybe go with C, but you'd have to have heard of it for C. I'm going to say go with D if you don't know what we're talking about, but we'll get to that. All right. Alex, do you have an opinion on this? I mean, don't tell me. Keep it to yourself.
No, I don't have an opinion. Well, I do have an opinion on it. I'm obviously not going to share it now. I mean, for anyone who doesn't understand local AI agents, we did cover it briefly last month with the emergence of OpenClaw and the popularity of it, and we'll talk a little bit more about that on this month's SEO update.
Absolutely. All right. So are we ready? Let's get into SEO and AI news that happened in the last month. It looks like at the very end of last month, the search engines expand AI reporting and website controls. So this was something that came out from Google and Bing. Bing is testing AI performance reporting that shows how often Copilot cites your site, which is very useful. The report is including citation counts, queries, and cited pages. To get into this, I believe you go into your Bing Webmaster Tools. If you do not have your Bing Webmaster Tools set up, you really probably should. So you might want to put that on your list of things to go do. Google also came out and said that publishers can control AI access using robots.txt and Google-extended. I have opinions about that, but okay. And Google's also exploring additional controls to manage AI usage of website content. So your takeaway is that you should be monitoring AI citation reports and review your AI access settings to manage your visibility in AI search, which, yes, that is rather obvious, but generally the obvious things bear repeating. Have you looked at this yet, Alex?
Um, yes, but I haven't gone into it too much, mostly because I don't really want to control how AI sees any sites that I've been managing. That's just me personally. I'm quite happy for agents to understand everything about the site. And I don't know whether it's called appropriation or ingesting is a matter of opinion, but I'm very happy with an agent having not full control is the word, but full visibility over the site to do what it needs to do. Because I believe the end game is the synthesized answer to the user, not the way the agent takes it for the user. What
I,
about you?
I'm I'm just confused about why would you want to restrict the AIs from seeing your site so that you can be cited? Like literally, what is the point? What is the point of having a website if you don't want it cited? And also, not all of the LLMs respect the robots.txt. That's already been proven. So what what is the point? And I find it rather rich that Google is coming out with these things that are easy to ignore, and then also saying that markdown files are a waste of time and LLMs.txt is a waste of time. So I don't
It's
know.
interesting. It
I
is
have
interesting.
opinions.
Yeah, they don't listen all. Like, I think that's the important thing. They don't listen. So even if you fight it, I feel like it might say, "Oh, you want to fight it, do you?" Well, I'm not going to listen to you. There's I don't know. There's a in Manchester where I live. There's a building called Affleck's Palace. And if you've been a visitor in Manchester, you'll have most likely been there. And on the outside, there's a red button on the outside, and on top of that button, it goes, "Please do not press this red button." And there's a cafe opposite, and people just sit there and drink coffee to see how many times people will press that button, and nothing does happen, right? It's been there for donkey's years, right? But it shows, right? There's an instruction there, and people read the instruction and go, "No, I'm going to rebel against that, and I'm just going to press it anyway out of curiosity to get what I want." And maybe that's what an agent's doing here. It might listen to something and just go, "No, I'm not going to listen to you."
Isn't isn't blocking the LLMs from your site tantamount to having a website and blocking the search engines entirely?
Yeah,
Like, if somebody blocked all the search engines, everybody would go, "Well, obviously that's wrong and you shouldn't be doing that." And if they said, "No, I don't want the search engines to come to my website," the response would be, "Then why do you have a website?" Like, what? That's like, I don't know.
it's where the value is the content. So I'm looking more at small publishers, just publishers in general, right? Who where their content they want you to visit the content so that they can serve ads, and that's how they make their money, and affiliate links, all of that kind of thing. If they take that out, then the value of the website's taken away. So I get that argument, but like you say, if you then do you want to be cited at all anywhere? I'd rather have a 1% conversion rate that from 1,000 people who somehow see you in the synthesized answer than not be seen at all and get 0% of zero.
Right.
Like I don't know, but I know that some people now are in that battle of AI appropriating content, and they're stealing it, and therefore they get the answer what they want inside the
They're
search
gonna but it's
response.
gonna happen anyway.
It is.
You cannot hold that tide back. It's happening. So,
I
all
guess
right.
it's like it's the internet again. It's internet V2, if you want to call it that. Like no one was going out there going, I am not going to type and publish a website. I'm going to write on paper. I'm going to keep on doing it. I don't think many of those people today are around in the same way. So I'd be interested to know how people's opinions about blocking it will change over the next 3 years. That's the real interesting thing, because like you say, it's not stopping, it's actually getting it's getting more aggressive, if you want
Yeah.
to use that word.
No,
So I
it
don't know,
is.
if you can't beat them, join them, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and that kind of brings us into debate growing over markdown AI agents and the future of machine readable content.
Mm.
So, OpenAI has launched now the Codex app, which lets users manage multiple AI agents that can complete complex tasks and automate your workflows independently. WordPress has also proposed, eh, story there, making all content available in markdown format to help AI agents better understand and use websites. think is reasonable. Cloudflare has also introduced a markdown-based approach to make content easier for AI bots to read and process. And then we've also got John Mueller and Bing engineers pushing back, saying markdown files increase your crawl load and don't improve search indexing. I have comments about that.
Mm-hmm.
And then the discussion just generally reflects a broader shift towards making websites more accessible to AI agents, not just traditional search crawlers. So going back to this beginning part, like, I don't know that the adoption of the Codex app is going to be anywhere near at the scale the adoption of just general ChatGPT type stuff has been, because it's kind of complicated to use and it's not nearly as intuitive or functional, I don't think, as Claude. But it goes towards a broader thing where the surface area that people are exposed to as far as your website and your ads and things go is shifting off of the surface of Google onto all of these other things. And are you doing things to make it easier for all of these other services to pick you up? And I think that's where, the WordPress proposal and the Cloudflare proposal, which are pretty similar, come into play. The rejection or the poo-pooing of the markdown by John Mueller and even people at Bing, those files are so small, it does not increase the crawl load. Like, it doesn't at all. So I don't understand. I need someone to help me understand how that argument makes sense. But all of that being said, your website should not be such a dumpster fire that you need to have markdown files. But I do understand that if you have a very large site or you're a very big company and you've spent many years at this point blinging out your website to be basically encrusted in rhinestones, when we were talking earlier, if you imagine your website is like a Christmas turkey, and it's this wonderful juicy turkey that everybody wants to eat, right? Everybody, including the LLM crawlers and the bots, they want to eat the turkey. But you have encrusted your turkey with rhinestones because you think that would look pretty and be attractive to people. The problem is it's so encrusted with rhinestones now that you can't get at the meat. So the .md file is basically, you've got your show turkey, and then you cooked an extra turkey on the side that is ugly, but everyone can actually eat it. That is sort of, I think, what's happening with this situation.
I just want to know how many people thought that was the great analogy, because I liked it. But I was thinking of the encrusting isn't edible by the human,
No, it's not.
But although the agent thinks it's valuable to a human, but not in the same way that you would ingest turkey. It is interesting. I do find it really interesting that there is kind of this half-half battle. I think the thing that, I don't know, I know you have opinions. My personal opinion is I think Markdown is a good thing. I don't think it's a size fits all, like a few other things that have been going on around here. And this is just a good example of that. And I think that John Mueller, he said his feedback was, well, look, agents can read an image, so why would they want to read Markdown? And whilst that's true, well, how much effort does it take for that agent to read the image and give out the same answer that a Markdown could do in 1% of that computation? And that's I think what's important. It's the efficient, if I go back to my token efficiency term, that's, I believe, what this is. And again, whether that's content in Markdown that's agent focused, and then you've got visual HTML content that's human focused, and whether that's two versions of the web in terms of content output is remains to be seen. But I personally agree with it. And just to correct you, just in case we don't get any trouble, it wasn't WordPress that actually suggested it, was Matt on WordPress's blog, right? So whether that's concurrent to WordPress as a whole, I'm unsure. But people have been doing stuff. Yoast himself, he's made a plugin that's in GitHub. I don't think it's on the repo, but that kind of does what this is saying, just creates a markdown version of it. So people are doing things, and obviously there's agreement in it. The debate is going to be something I reckon that will last for a few months, until we can see proper data around it, I guess, or until someone proves the other person wrong. But we've
I
got
think
remains to be seen.
I think part of the problem that maybe Google and Bing don't want to admit is there's a high probability that your markdown files or your TXT files, because that's all markdown files
Mm.
are, will outrank your pretty pages because they are easier for the search engines to read and
Mhm.
get context from too. And that's going to create a problem where people are like, "Well, how do I block the search engines from using this? And if I block the search engines, does that also inadvertently block Gemini or Copilot or, so I think they're poo-pooing it because it's adding a layer of complexity to the logic that they have to deal with, not
Yes.
necessarily that it is at its core a bad idea.
It's a them problem, which of course they'll want to minimize. It's not an us problem. And I believe that solution is quite simple to the problem of if it ranks markdown over the human version HTML. That's how I would have thought, like canonicalization of some sort would have worked out there. This
Doesn't
is
it
the
sound a
markdown
bit like
version.
AMP? Do you remember AMP?
Yes, I do remember AMP, and people poo-pooed it, but it did serve a purpose. Well, so there are arguments for and against, but there's no right or wrong answer today.
Yeah.
Anyway, maybe next month we'll tell you otherwise. Let's see.
For right now, though, for the audience's tactical takeaway, if you can make your site less blingy so that it's easier for the agents to get at all the good content, do so. If you are in a situation where your hands are tied, you cannot affect anything, and you know that the agents are not reading your site the way you want it to be read, then you can explore, these markdown options. You can explore these other options. The first choice should always be fix your website. If you can't, then you look for these mitigating band-aids, but fix your website. That's the best advice that
I
we can
think we've been
offer.
saying that since forever, haven't we?
Yeah. All right. Is Google finally cracking down on self-promotional listicles? I think you were saying that you read, Lily found evidence that was happening.
Yes, so I'll put that in the chat at some point while we're chatting here. But yeah, Lily noticed by looking at Systrix that some sites were losing visibility. She dug into it a bit more, and she found that there was a pattern of blog posts where people, and the example you used before was actually the example that happened where someone was choosing the top 20 SEO agencies in the US, and guess who was number one? The person who published it, and that isn't kosher. That would say is
So obvious.
it's very
Oh my
obvious. Put yourself as number 7, right? Just so you're in there, so you can be selected
Or
somehow.
20, put yourself last. You just wanna be
Exactly.
in that company, but even so, you shouldn't put yourself there if you're not actually there because
No. But you know what you're doing. Let's face it, everyone here right now, if they were doing a post like that and they put themselves in this list and that may not be accurate, then you and I both know that you're doing grey or black hat techniques to try and get mentioned somewhere. It's going to be quite obvious if you're telling it's like us going on Yoast.com and saying out of all the plugins out there, Yoast is the best. And whilst that's our opinion, right? But it's subjective. We work here, and that is also that's also translated onto the website as well. It's very obvious.
well, and I don't even think I think that's slightly different because we are legitimately frequently in those lists. I think if I were to go on Yoast.com and list the top 10 most attractive supermodels and put myself as number 10, that's obviously ridiculous. Like, what metric are we using to determine who the hottest supermodels are, right? And because that's what they're doing. They're not putting themselves in cohorts that they belong in. They're artificially inserting themselves into lists that they have no business or no provable right to be included in. Like, what were the metrics, the criteria that you had for creating this list? They never do that. It's obviously a cheat tactic.
Yeah.
So I'm very happy if this is finally cracking down on them. I'm super happy about it because it's gross.
Yes, yeah.
It's
And the
tacky.
takeaway here is don't do it because it's gross. But
Yeah.
also spread that. So if your company is owned by another company, watch your back on that. Even though I don't believe it spreads that far, but it might one day. So I would still try and be honest as possible and objective. And if you are comparing, you can do, as long as it's factually based. It's accurate, and it's not just a this is our opinion on the matter.
Have some legitimate methodology for how you're making that list. Explain your methodology and back it up with data points, and then it's defensible. Otherwise, it's just gauche.
Yes.
All right.
What's
So,
next?
tell me about this one.
Yeah, so Google, no, sorry, not Google, Microsoft.
Microsoft.
Microsoft, because Google did do this. They did something similar a couple of months ago. I don't know exactly when, but this is basically Microsoft being nice as possible to publishers, saying that this is the way in which we believe that agents should be perceiving sites, and this is a way that you can control some of that aspect. I don't think it's going to really apply to many people in here, unless, again, you're running a publication. And if you are, do read into this a bit more. But it basically goes through the same old stuff. Make sure your site's well structured, it's concise and everything. All of those things. But I think also it kind of wants to serve it back to the publisher so it doesn't believe that everything's just being appropriated for a results page of some type. And it also offers, a bit of a cut. So I think they've been offering compensation out, like it says. So they'll probably trial this with big publishers, see how it works, see what doesn't, and then spread it out amongst that. But it's going to be interesting this year to see how the news or other content publications out there are going to work with these agents, because I think last year's been a lot of struggle and unanswered questions, and this is the first structured way for a future, some roadmap that these publishers can actually go along with that isn't so unpredictable.
I think I think the fourth bullet there, this that search may shift from human clicks to AI systems retrieving answers from websites. I think that's the biggest shift in how people think about things that is going to literally affect everything going forward. And I'm working on a book, and it's largely about that, how all of the models are going to change, and all of the information gathering is going to be moving off of the traditional search onto lots of other different things. But the way in which everything interacts with the websites is not only going to change, how the websites are built, because they're going to need to be accessible by these other things, not just humans, but it's going to change the economy of what we know as the web, and the way business models and monetization models have been built historically. So it's a very exciting time. The one thing, just recent thing that I would add to that is I think I was talking to Grok. I was either talking to Grok or I was talking to Gemini, and I was asking it questions about my own website because I was working on it, and then I went and looked at my stats. That little conversation I had spawned 70 different hits
Hmm.
and visits from that LLM to my website that were recorded as just traffic. So there are definitely interesting things that we're going to have to start doing to peel out and differentiate different kinds of traffic, different kinds of clicks. How can we monetize those? Because you certainly can't monetize LLM traffic the way that you can monetize people traffic, because no one's going to pay CPM rates for eyeballs that are digital. Robot eyeballs are not the same as people eyeballs. So it's a very interesting time to be in this business.
Yeah, and it's also interesting that these agents don't have, because they don't have feelings or emotions, they're not sold on things, they add a meaningless to them. So things like, we would read something like, oh, maybe I do need to get better health. Let me try that app. Like, that happens to a human, but an agent's going to sift right through that. It's also worth noting maybe that these agents that are going around, they're not just from Anthropic. They're not just from Google. They're not just from OpenAI. They're from everywhere, and it's going to be uncontrollable, and everyone's going to open their own. We're all going to have, like we were saying at the beginning of the poll, local agents, and they're all going to be in using different LLMs and different manners, and that's only going to get worse. It's only going to get bigger, and therefore worse for SEOs who are trying to report on that traffic. And there's going to be no way of controlling that.
I just thought of a way that you don't have to. It's a way to cheat, and it's a way to pad your KPIs, so I'm not going to repeat it here. But you and I, we'll talk about it later because I don't want to give anybody. I don't want to tell people how to cheat. Oh my God, it's going to be so easy though. Okay, so anyway, moving on.
Yeah, Meta.
Tell me about this one.
Yeah, so Meta, I don't know how many people use Meta AI as a daily thing. I mean, I've got the Meta Ray-Ban glasses, but that's really my only engagement with that LLM. They are launching something called Avacado, which is just a new agent. There's not much around it. It's still a bit murky. I think all we found here, which was from testingcatalog.com, I think, again, I'll put the link in the chat, is they found that randomly from probably some tests that they weren't supposed to get access to. But it's interesting that they acquired Manus not long ago. They're utilizing that. They're bringing things like OpenClaw, again, into the LLM itself, so you can connect to them. I know Kimmy does that as well. But they're also introducing integrations. So it seems like they're going the Claude way of connecting all your personal stuff to add all the context and everything. So I don't know, what are we going to learn from that? Making sure that, again, we're doing the right things on the website, but also things like things that go into your Gmail or calendar events are also going to be used for context. So I personally believe that things like mailing lists that you never unsubscribe to are just all of a sudden for those brands going to get that bit more valuable, because it will know that you have been in that mailing list for 8 years and never unsubscribed. So surely you have an interest in them. Or I just joined that mailing list last week, so maybe I should present content with that context as well. But it's going to be, again, even more. I think here omnichannel is going to be a lot more important than it was a year ago and the year before that. And all the integrations together are only going to work towards better context.
You have to. My takeaway from this is different than the takeaway that's on the screen right now. You have to make sure that your messaging is tight and consistent across all channels. You have to be repeating the same message everywhere if you want that message to be reliably repeated by whatever LLMs are being interacted with. So omni-channel is absolutely important. You cannot have one message that, one SEO message and one message for TV and one message for billboards. Everything has to be repeated, the same thing across all of the channels, because you need all of those reinforcement points to validate and corroborate the message and then reinforce it.
Yeah. I would also say if you're in a large company, like, start getting friendlier with your marketing team if you're not already, because they do things that's going to be important to you, and vice versa. Like, you need to be each other's buddies now. I know there's that famous, SEOs, marketers and devs, there's this weird locking horns. I was like, we need to stop that right now, because we're all on the same team. And when it comes to agents, all three of those teams and engineering as well need to come together to make sure that everything's consistent, like you say. But yeah, get friends with everyone.
We're all at your business. You're all in the same boat, and you all have to be rowing in a coordinated fashion in the same direction. So just make sure everyone is coordinated and working together. All right. ChatGPT is apparently rolling out ads. I would not know this because I have a paid account. So if you are using a free account, you will start seeing ChatGPT ads. And we know this because Anthropic made fun of them at the Super Bowl, which is the second I saw that Super Bowl, the Super Bowl commercial. I'm like, why does that sound like an OpenAI or a ChatGPT ad? Like, oh, look, it's a ChatGPT ad.
That's what my wife said when I showed it to her. And I think that's very telling. And also, horrific if you're inside OpenAI, where you see that and you're like, oh my God, that is the responses that we give. Like, and it's so canned, I guess is the term to say it. It's unpersonal, which is what an agent is. But I don't know. I've got a thing with agents and communicating with them. I think the example here was, I think the guy was working out and then he asked the question to his friend and the friend went, that's a great question. And the way he said it to me, that irks me because that's how I hear it when I read it. I know it's a great question. I asked it. That's why we're here. That's why we're
I
communicating.
don't ask stupid questions. What's wrong with you?
Yeah. And can you imagine what would it would do? Are you gonna? What's a stupid question to you? Like, can I ask it a stupid question? Are you going to tell me I'm being stupid? Probably not, because the positive reinforcement is by default. That's it, it'll say something else that makes you not sound like an idiot. But sometimes I want to be told I'm an idiot if I'm being an idiot. Like, otherwise, I'm going to continue being an idiot.
That is the finest question that I think has come out of this entire conversation is, what would you have to do to get ChatGPT to say, that's a dumb question?
Yeah. Again, that goes back to that South Park episode, I think, where Randy's wife was just testing ChatGPT by going, how about having flying potatoes? And it's like, that sounds great. Do you want to make a business plan out of this? And you're like, no. But it does prove the point that some ideas are bad. Like, we also need to be self-aware that some of ideas are bad, and even a robot can tell us that, not just a human. I don't know. But yes, let's go back to the ads. I'm a free user of ChatGPT. I haven't seen them, but I know I'm in the UK. Here's an example. I got this from I think Glenn Gabe asked around, or Lily, one of the two, and then someone reposted and said, "Look, I'm seeing this Expedia one." So this is just an example. I think this is all right because it's clearly separated them. But again, looking back at history and the way in which Google did PPC at the very beginning, it was just on the right. It was in those yellow background boxes. It was so clear and evident that everything was sponsored. And then as the years went on, it got a bit murkier. I have a feeling that this may happen here. I'm hoping it doesn't, because they really do need to tell you if you're being served an ad right in the middle of a conversation.
So it was obvious that it was an ad when I saw it, and the reason I just switched phones, I was telling you about it. I finally got off my iPhone 13, so got a new phone. I hadn't logged in yet to ChatGPT, and I didn't realize it because I had switched everything over. And I said something to it, and it gave me this weird. It was a weird robotic response, and then there was an ad below, and I was like, "Oh my God, there's an ad!" And then I must not be logged in, so I logged myself in and got rid of it. But it was jarring. It was jarring. I didn't like it.
It's
So
interesting. It's also interesting the pay for not having ads. Like, how's that going to? I know YouTube have been doing it for years and everything.
I've been telling newspapers to do this for a while. If you're going to make people sign up for your paywall, then take your ads down. Like, make it worth their while to access the copy. Don't continue to bombard them with ads if they're going to pay for it. I think it's a reasonable business model. The like
We have
Costco.
that. We have that in
Costco and
the
Sam's
UK.
Club, they make all of their money on the memberships. So the margins on the groceries don't really matter. So, membership to get rid of ads is, I think, a viable business model. And hopefully, if everybody has that visceral, holy crap, what is this? I don't like this reaction to the ads, and that incentivizes them to sign up for a membership, that could be profitable.
Yeah. I'm going back to you should pay to not see ads. We've got that in the UK with some news publishers. I know that if you were to go on, I don't know exactly which ones. I know that, like, Manchester Evening News, where I live in Manchester, that's the paper here. You go on and it's the cookie thing. So you can either accept the cookies or you can reject and pay. And that's the personalization part. But I don't think that, I know that some are like, if you want to read all of this, like the Spectator or the Times, I think, do it sometimes as well. It'll go down. You can read the first two paragraphs, and it stops you to sign up and pay before you can read everything. But again, it's a
But
different kind of thing.
but they need to not have the ads around it too.
Yes, yeah, which is going to be a weird.
Like, it's the Daily Mail, I think, that is the most offensive offender in that category, because it'll be like 2 sentences, a huge ad, 2 sentences, a huge ad. it is the most infuriating thing ever, and I won't look at their website. I just won't do it.
See, that's interesting because I know that, like, those fashiony magazines, the gossip mags. I don't know if you have Hello magazine in the US. We just call them,
That
the
implies
hair.
I go to the grocery store to look for those things, which I
Right.
don't.
Well, here we call them the hairdresser magazines. That's what you do when you wait, and they're just there. But those are paid for magazines. They're full of ads. Way more. They're like the mirror version here. Like there's an ad everywhere, and yet people, no problem, bought them because they could deal with not reading the ad, passing through to find out who Leonardo DiCaprio is dating this week. Like I don't know, but people got it then. But all of a sudden, if it's on the web, it's more intrusive. I find that
Well,
part of the psychology interesting as well.
I think with the web in particular, my problem is that in order to scroll past it, you accidentally touch it at least half of the time. And
Mm.
if you accidentally touch it, it takes you somewhere else. And then it's that forced context switching that just makes my brain recoil.
Yeah, we're very well. I guess paper's easy to just flush
Yeah.
over anyway. But
Well,
yes,
paper isn't going to you accidentally touch the page and now you have a different magazine.
yes, at most you turn the page thinking you're going to continue the article and there's a page of ad, but then you just look right. It's fine. It's fine. Let's see what they do. Good luck to them, though.
Absolutely. All right. WebMCP. This is an interesting thing that came out, and you were telling me about it. So, MCP means
Model Context Protocol. And that is a way of asking things about maybe data or technical stuff and brings it out in a more natural language. In this context, it's under the hood of your code, right? So at the moment, what an agent does, when Carolyn was explaining before, and you had those 20 visits, it was looking at a website. The agent was looking at a website just like a human would. It would go on, it would see the visual elements, it would take a screenshot. The agent would take an image screenshot, then it would study that screenshot to see what it needed to do. This is is this a way of like markdown version of looking for something? I guess it looks under the hood, right? It looks for context. It will, let's use a contact form right now, and you want to be contacted. Now it will understand that inside the code there is a form with an ID called contact, so it'll make some assumptions. It will also therefore look at all the inputs. It will know what your first name, last name, all the things that it asks. It will know where the submit button is, and therefore it will be able to take an action based on that without going through the screenshot, and therefore going back to token optimization, using probably, I don't know, a lot less computation to get to where it needs to go. What does that mean as an SEO? You've got to make sure that things, naming conventions under the hood, are going to have to be tightened up. Again, make things quite easy, not just for a human, but for an agent to find, even under the hood as well in the code. But it's also going to show the way that agents may change the way that they look at a website in the future, because now they're looking at less visual elements and they're looking at contextual elements and understanding them. So I guess this might be a good way of navigating in the same way of an alt tag in an image, where you describe what's in the image, gives it a bit away, and then you can use what that image context is.
see MCP compared to just like a markdown file of the text or even the LLMs.txt. An MCP publicly available feels to me like that could be a lot more dangerous in terms of allowing nefarious actors to do nefarious things. I could
Mm.
be I could be mistaken, but it's very interesting. I'm I'm gonna sit back and wait to see how this develops, um, because I'm normally a suspicious person, and this just feels like it's got more opportunity to be used in unkind ways.
Well, I guess isn't this the year of experimentation? They find out what those bad ways are, close the loop, and everything. But yeah, I also wonder what implications there are on these. Let's call them black hat AI SEO techniques, whatever you want to call it. Like, are you
Cheating.
going to be penalized? Yeah, are you going to be penalized? And if so, how and who by? Is it so? Let's say that ChatGPT is the platform you're using. It uses WebMCP. It does something bad, but it's also got your site from maybe a Google search. Like, who's getting involved there on giving a negative sentiment towards that site. That's going to be probably this year's research and development, isn't it? So, but this might be a thing in a year where we're saying, look, you've got to look at your site right now and do everything. And the early adopters are doing it already and looking into it. But as a normal SEO or someone maybe in this audience, I would say like read into it, be aware of it, but don't like go gung ho and walk into your developer's office and go, right, we need to do all of this right now. Just be wary. And if something maybe isn't obvious when it comes to actions, then maybe update them, but nothing. I wouldn't say change everything right now.
Yeah, just I wouldn't play with it until you're sure that you have a relatively decent understanding of what it's capable of, what the limitations are, and make sure you've got any ability to manipulate that file externally really locked down, because this isn't something that you want to risk opening up to the public. Like,
Mhm.
if you don't know how to make a file read only when it's public facing, please, for the love of God, do not upload any files that are publicly writable to to your
Yeah,
website, at least without making sure that you've got a dev supervising you, because that's how security protocols are breached. Just
yeah.
be careful when you're playing with stuff like this.
Definitely. I know we've got a couple more, but we're also running out of time. Let's get through these. Yeah, Bing Webmaster Tools. We did discuss this a little bit before. I think maybe they were that when we talked about it before, it was more of an announcement, but this is actual rollout. I've seen, I can access this in Bing Webmaster Tools myself now. I think
Mhm.
quickly to say that it has rolled out AI performance. It's given you a nice new design. Don't think that makes much of a difference, I guess. I mean, I'm not noticing too much, but it's interesting that the report shows you what I like to think is a Webmaster Tools Search Console report that we've all seen before. Keywords and pages linked to those keywords. But the keywords here is interesting. The way they explain it is if you're asking something as a prompt and you three sentences in, obviously it has to do stuff kind of like the fan out technique. It has to play searches, and in that's where the data is. So even though it's reporting on old school SEO metrics, it's about the new channels that you're still reporting on. So I think it's quite good. I think that's the bridging the gap part of the native to the new school agent stuff. But what it does show is that agents are still doing searches like we have been doing searches before the prompts came out.
Also, this is another Bing Webmasters Tool feature, and if you don't have your Bing Webmaster Tools account set up, go set it up. Bing's doing stuff now, and
Yeah.
there's a there's a softening of Google's chokehold on the browser market in general, and because the browsers are all, or the search engine surface is losing its iron lock on all of the surfaces that we're exposed to. Bing is, I think, is going to start making moves, so you really should have that set up so that it's tracking and you've got it available to look at.
Yeah, good that
Um,
Yoast SEO sorts that out, and you can do all of that in the back end if it's too difficult for you. Just take the hash and then you can put that in there. Next, yes, AI mode launches UCP-powered checkout. So we did talk about UCP.
yeah, you were doing a lot of looking into this.
Yeah, I did a post on Search Engine Journal, which I'll show off in the chat in a second. And I'm doing another one that's either out right now or it's going to be out this week, again on Search Engine Journal. So UCP, for everyone who doesn't know, is a way in which agents can go from discovery all the way to checkout, purchase, and retention through agents. So it can buy products on your behalf and look at everything. Here is just very quickly, it's now an example that if you go in AI mode, you can see some of these shops. I believe that Etsy, Wayfair, Walmart are all in it already. And that means that adoption should be fast. So if you're a large brand, you should really be, especially if you're in ecom, you need to be looking at this right now, and your developers need to be like having meetings about it right now. If you've got nothing to do with e-commerce, I wouldn't really concern yourself too much with this. But it does show that structured data, even though this isn't all schema powered, this is other structured data, but it uses schema in it. Structured data in general is going to be super important in the future for how all of these agents efficiently interpret anything.
Yeah, where I was skeptical on the MCP, the UCP I definitely think is something, especially if you're in e-commerce, you should be looking into, just
Mm.
full stop. So let's go on to OpenClaw, OpenAI, and the future. Uh, there are emerging standards for AI agents interacting with websites. Obviously, you need to focus on machine-readable actions, not just readable content. Websites might expose capabilities instead of only pages. Like, this is all stuff that we've really been, it seems to be the through line for
Mhm.
everything that's been discussed and is being discussed in the industry right now. The takeaways are still the same though. Structure your site clearly and keep your data consistent so the machines reliably interpret your content and actions. It's the same. Now, when it comes to OpenClaw though, I really recommend everyone who is capable of it play with it a little bit. Like install it, get it running. Maybe don't let it off the leash. I installed it. I have it, if you're thinking to yourself, I don't have a Mac Mini, you don't need a Mac Mini. I There's this thing called it's a Windows sublayer system that lets you run Linux underneath your Windows machine. So if you don't have a Mac, you can still do this, and you can set it up on there. Maybe don't give it access to everything. Maybe don't release it into the wild with until you've tested the guardrails and you're sure that you're not going to, don't give it your credit card number and your Claude tokens, your Claude API, so that it can just go rack up $4,000 in debt overnight and sign you up for, you know, a life coach. Don't do that stuff. But you should play with it if you can. And it's not impossible for people that aren't techie. You just need to make sure that you're paying attention to protecting yourself and not just giving it your wallet and letting it run loose.
Yeah, it's also worth noting that there are some places that give away free usage in their API. I found that NVIDIA, again, I'll put this in the chat. There's a link. If you sign up, there's these free models that you can use, and they're actually impressive. They're not as on demand as fast as using Sonnet 4.6 or whatever it is, or Opus 4.6, and doing that. But it's definitely not as expensive as paying for something. So yeah, right. We're running out of time. So also in the news, do I have to read these really fast as a British person?
Do it.
Ready. OpenAI to charge based on ad impressions, not clicks, which is actually really interesting because that's not been around for ages. ChatGPT's lead shrinks as Gemini surges, but I know that that can kind of be manipulated because a lot of people are on Google as a native, especially things on their phones and so on. Traffic from SEO is only down 2.5% year on year. Really interesting, but is it actually true? What's the data set? I don't know.
I want to see the data on that one. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we'll have a look at it. UK announces Meta-backed AI team, which is interesting. So Meta's working with the UK government on public service stuff. That puts them ahead on a lot of things, I think, when you've got government-backed stuff. But I know that ChatGPT, I think, are doing that as well. Oh no, it's Anthropic and the military, the US military, have some agreement. But I heard today in the news that there was something iffy about that, wasn't going through. But I don't know. More. Yahoo Scout, they've got their own AI answer agent. I don't know how competitive that will be. Check it out if you're interested. Bing multi-turn search is available worldwide. That's just a nice way of saying that it does more than one search in one search and then brings it all back to you. But again, you can have a look at that. But it's good to know Longtail will win in that. WordPress.com has a Claude connector. Don't really need to elaborate on that. If you know what a Claude connector is and you're on WordPress.com, thumbs up for you guys. Google's February 2026 Discover Core update. Interesting because it's no longer a core update. They're now splitting it out. Means quite a bit, I'd say. But if you are someone who likes to rely a lot on Discover, have a look at that. They also updated their documentation to be a little more specific as to why you wouldn't be doing well in the next one. Opus 4.6 has come out. I've heard it's amazing, just like the last one, just like the last one, just like the last one. And I'm sure 4.7 will make that look rubbish. And lastly, Grokpedia is seeing a decline in Google search visibility. Grokpedia is an AI-based Wikipedia kind of fork, if you want to call it that. Have a look. If you've got any entities you want to do, put them in. If you can just submit yourself as a person or your company as an entity, and I think it turns around in about 24 hours.
One of the things that I noticed about Grokpedia is that not everything has a permanent page. So some of the pages are just generated on the fly when you ask it a question, but they don't stay. So I'm wondering if some of that Google search visibility has to do with the search crawler coming back and looking for content again and not finding it that time and then taking it out. And when it gets regenerated, it doesn't get revisited because Google's already marked it as being gone. So there could be like an SEO reason behind that that is fixable for
Interesting.
Grok, which I'm happy to consult. I'm happy to tell you how to fix that if that's the problem.
Yeah.
Um,
Elon, Carolyn will hook you up. Don't worry. And that was everything. I did that all right in one
That
breath.
was everything. So let's move on to the Yoast news real quick. I think all we've got to mention are
Well,
the
before we do that, there isn't any Yoast product news this month. But please check back next month because there will be much bigger news that I reckon will be worth 2 months worth
very
of
big
news.
news.
Yes. But yes, we are at places, aren't we? I'm speaking at the WordPress 26 virtual conference that's hosted by Human Made, the Baltic Nordic SEO Summit. We're not there, but some people from Yoast are there. Cloudfest, you're at Cloudfest, aren't you?
I'm going to CloudFest, but I'm also going to be at SMX France and SMX Munich, which are
In
earlier
between.
in March, like March 9th or 9th and 10th are my speaking days. So those aren't in the list, but if you're going to be at SMX France or SMX Munich, please make sure that you stop by and hear my talks.
Yes, and if she is talking, make sure you clap the loudest. Thank you very much.
Hoots and hollers, I would appreciate it.
Yes. Webwinkle. I don't know which one's the V and which one's the W. That's in Utrecht. That's more of an e-commerce based event. And then there's
Excellent pronunciation there.
Thank you. And then there's the SEO Brain meetup, which I'm going to assume is for brain. But yes, Uren is hosting something in Rotterdam, and I will be speaking there about I told you that SEO is not dead because it's not.
Excellent. All right. I think we are also supposed to mention that our next update is Tuesday, March 24th. You can register now. We will send out, obviously, reminders. But don't forget that we did have those other two webinars, the Intro to Yoast SEO and the what's the other one called? SEO for Beginners.
Yes.
So we've got those two webinars that are also available. So if you find sometimes that Alex and I might be going over, going a little fast or going over your head, do feel free to join the other introductory webinars because they'll help you. They'll help give you a good foundation for your SEO knowledge. And all of that being said, have you got any questions? This is the time when we will answer them.
Yes, Q&A time, and let's go through the poll answers as well.
Oh yeah, okay, here we go.
Let's do this.
All righty, let's find some questions. I saw a couple that I wanted to answer. So here, this is a good one. What are your thoughts on hallucinations and inaccurate information made by the majority of the language models? Is it something we will see less often soon? So my opinion on that, well, it's not even an opinion. The reason that they hallucinate and the reason they have inaccurate information is because they don't have all of the information they need. When there are gaps in the available information, they fill things in. So I don't know if you're familiar with the legal system. They cross-examine witnesses. Why do they cross-examine witnesses all the time? Because the human brain doesn't like incomplete stories. And if you have gaps in your brain or things in your memories that aren't super clear, your brain will fill in those gaps to make the story whole. And that's what the LLMs are doing. When they have gaps, they fill in the gaps. That's what comes across as hallucination because what they invent might not be accurate. So how do you get rid of that? You make sure that this goes back to repeating your message everywhere and consistently. If you have the same message everywhere and consistently, if the LLM doesn't pick it up from this part, it might pick up the detail over here, and then it will synthesize everything together to create a less hallucinated answer. So I think as people get better at tightening up their messages, making their messages more consistent, and making their websites easier for the LLMs to ingest, you will eventually see less hallucinations. That's what I think.
Yeah, I'm hoping it does it over time though, because I'm really getting impatient with these hallucinations, and they're very convincing with the hallucinations. And when you call them out, they actually admit that they made it up, and they
Oh, you
still
caught
don't
me.
correct it. One of them says, "Yeah, you caught me." Like, don't what? Why am I catching? Why do I need to be catching you? I'm supposed to be not trusting you, but I don't know. They're lying as much as humans do. They're learning well.
They're not, well, they're not lying. They're just very confident. I think lying implies intention.
That's
And
true. That's true.
they're just wrong. All right. So we've got that one. What about I already allow Bing Webmaster to access my Google account. Is that enough, or should I use both independently? I vote for use both independently. You can let them talk to each other, but I think you should use both because they show different things on their dashboards.
Yeah, and it may be worth downloading the data from both. You might want to upload that to an LLM and ask it to analyze both, see where there's something that Google saw that Bing didn't, vice versa, because there is usually something that one sees that something else doesn't see on the surface, but still helps visibility with both and more.
All right, how do I do this? Okay. Here's a good one. Could AI spot a deep fake on a website? I would say yes.
Mhm. And it'll
I,
get
yeah,
better.
I think they smell their own.
They smell their own, like dogs. They're
Yeah,
chasing each other's ass.
yeah.
Just making sure. But yeah, I think it should. But again, like it depends what you're deep faking, and I don't know. I just connect deep fakes with bad shady stuff rather than I'm shaking Elon's hand kind of thing. But
I also
that's a
think
method of deep fake, isn't it? I guess.
I think you would have to ask it specifically, like, is this video AI generated or is this picture AI generated? I
Hmm.
don't know that they would volunteer that, and I don't that's a level of nuance that I think we should differentiate. I don't know that it will immediately treat any information it gets from AI generated anything as immediately fake or false. I think they might believe everything that they see unless you explicitly say, check to see if this video is real. If this video is AI generated, tell me and
Mhm.
disregard everything it says or something like that. So
Mhm.
I think that might be the better question.
Yeah, we're nearly at time, so we might have to go straight to the poll now.
Oh shoot. Okay.
Yes, let's
Let's go
see
to
the
the
result.
poll. Add to stage.
Ooh, interesting. So you
That
said
is interesting.
before D too early to tell for people who just don't know what's going to go on. So I kind of half discounted that. So I'm kind of thinking it is. Everyone is thinking it is going to be a major workflow shift. I think it'll be an intermediate shift. Like I think that'll be slow, but in 5 years, yeah, I think we're going to look back on how we work today and go, oh my god, do you remember all of those manual actions we did? I think that's what will happen, but it won't happen, I don't believe, by the end of the year. I think everyone in the AI space, and I know that someone mentioned, how they're getting anxious with all the stuff that's going on. Like, remember that already, if you're in this now, you're already 0.1% of a population who even know what an LLM is, let alone use it regularly. There's not a lot of it. There's a lot of people using it, but I feel like it's a semi-echo chamber of how fast everything is going. I.e., I don't like people going, if you're not using this, you're falling behind already. Like,
Yeah.
eh,
Well, there's a lot of hype monsters out there, especially like on X, where they're saying if you got 12 months to make your millions, and if you're not rich by the end of this 12 months, then you're going to be in the permanent underclass. And okay, that's probably not true. That being said, I think I am with it's a major workflow, future workflow shift
hmm,
crowd, but I think we've got until 2030 before it's really obvious. But I didn't think we were going to make the advances and strides in the last 2 years that we made. So I don't know. I mean, Elon says we're in the singularity already. I don't know.
No, I don't see much improvement to humanity as a whole in the last, like, since ChatGPT's come out. Like, I don't know. And part of me is a skeptic, although I can see all the advances that are happening and how it will change things. But I'm a believer of not everyone's going to lose their job. Everyone's going to be able to do more of their job better, more efficiently, and our
If
capacity will be higher.
if you learn to use the tools. I think if you're a
Yeah,
troglodyte and you refuse to use the tools, there will be people who are using the tools who are clearly outpacing you at your job. And you know, if you're in that kind of job, it's going to be worth it to at least learn how to maximize your productivity.
yeah.
But
Watch
that's
us next
interesting.
month. Next month, all of the chats are going to be a bunch of OpenClaw agents, aren't they, talking to us?
Yeah, that's it's a little scary how much rein people are giving their open cloud. Like you can't just it's kind of like a toddler with a credit card. Like you can't just let them run through the mall and buy whatever they want, which is kind of what people are doing. So we can discuss, I guess, more of that. We probably will be discussing it going forward just because people are still playing with it. So
Yes.
let's go ahead and wrap it up. I'm sorry I didn't get to more questions, but do register for the next SEO update. And thank you so much for joining us. We will see you again next month, I think on the 24th. And yeah, we'll keep reading the news so that you don't have to.
See you then, guys. Bye.